And so we are rapidly approaching one of the most anticipated fights on the 2025 calendar. The man who is promoting it alongside his frenemy, Eddie Hearn, is the one and only Ben Shalom, the founder of Boxer. He is kind enough to join us from London, site of this mega fight. There he is. Hello, Ben. How are you?
I am very well. A very busy week over here in London, but looking forward to an absolutely enormous fight.
Yes, a very busy few days for you. Obviously,
Yeah.
on Sunday, you had the Easter Sunday show in Birmingham. Can we start there, if I can? Obviously, it was a big one for Ben. There was a lot at stake, a lot of pressure. I kind of felt like a lot of that emotion came out in the post-fight press conference. He was emotional. What did you think of his performance, the win over Liam Cameron?
It was, first of all, the build-up over here. This was a story, this rematch that captivated British boxing. I mean, you have Ben Whittaker, the Olympic silver medalist, and flying high. We've never seen the numbers of someone at this stage in their career and what he's been doing. But he divides opinion. And the night on October the 12th, where the two of them fell out the ring and the controversy that came, it was crazy. And, at that point, we said to him, do you want another fight? He said, no, we want to go straight back into the rematch. And he had to do a lot of soul searching. But I tell you what, the pressure he was under, the ridiculous amount of pressure that he was under, he came through, and his statement was emphatic. It was a superb performance. It was, to be honest, everything that we expect. His talent deserves that sort of performance. His talent suggests that he's a lot better than the level. No disrespect to Liam Cameron of where he's going to go, but the pressure, that was what most pleased me. He showed, he's not just an elite level athlete. He's got elite mentality, and he was himself during the ring walk. He was himself as he came in, and then an unbelievable stoppage as well.
Okay, and so what about that stoppage? Some have said it was premature. What's your response?
To be honest, I feel like fans sometimes want fighters to be literally stitched to the canvas, or have that, those knockout real moments, are fantastic, and they're fantastic for Ben. And maybe part of Ben's camp feel like it would have been nice for it to go on to get one of them. But for me, at ringside, when you see the fighter's eyes roll and you see he's got a perforated eardrum and he's hardly standing up and it's only getting worse and worse, I actually feel that sometimes referees should save the fighter for another day. And that's what it felt like to me. It was only going one way at that stage. So I don't mind it, when it's so one-sided.
I said this on the show with Ade yesterday. I was very, very surprised at the reaction to the win, because I thought, here's one of your own. Here's a silver medalist. He has flown the flag. He represented Great Britain. And I couldn't believe the vitriol that I saw afterwards. And I know he was emotional, and I know in a perfect world, you don't want him going after the corner like that. But look, you spoke of the pressure. You spoke of everything he's been through. Why does it seem like the British public aren't backing him like they have some other former Olympians?
Ariel, honestly, it's crazy over here in the UK. I think in the US, and I've seen bits of what was said in the US, this guy would be celebrated like you wouldn't believe. But over here, because of his flashiness, because of his confidence, because of his background, because of it sort of brings out the worst in people and the worst in fans at times. And, I scratch my head. You got a 27-year-old here that's giving us entertainment like you wouldn't believe. Every time he steps in the ring, there's a talking point. He's amassed millions of followers. He's bringing new eyeballs to our sport that we love. And he's putting on massive events. I mean, that was his 10th fight in a sold-out arena, doing over 350,000 viewers on Sky, which is huge over here. I can't understand it. And look, I think over time, as he proves more and more people wrong, that will start to shift. But yeah, the hate mentality that British boxing fans sometimes have to someone that is a bit different, that is himself, that doesn't fall into line, that isn't just a prim and proper, guy, and in the sense that he doesn't fit in with the rest of the bunch. And I just don't understand it. This is what the sport needs. We need characters like Ben Whittaker, Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury over here. They've been the ones flying the flag. They've been the ones filling the stadiums. They've been the ones selling the pay-per-view events. They're heavyweights. But we've not had a a superstar like this in a long, long time. And you think back to Nassim Hamed, people love him now. They love him now. But during his career, there was a lot of hate as well. And I think it's one of those things.
Last thing on Ben, when do you want to see him again? When would you like to see him fight again?
We're going to headline again in September, back in his hometown again. And look, to be honest, the change I've seen with Andy Lee in such a short period of time just gives me so much more confidence in that he's got the right people around him. So it's going to be strength to strength now. We're going to allow him to learn, allow him to have different opponents, different styles, but definitely stepping him up each time. And look, what I promise you, this is a seriously exciting journey. For me, he is going to be the biggest star in British boxing and possibly world boxing in a couple of years. He's got that much potential. So, yeah, it was an amazing night Sunday, to be honest. A relief for everyone involved and for him after what he had been through. It was a special night and one we'll remember as a massive moment in his career as well.
Do you have an opponent for September?
We've got a couple in mind. You know, in the domestic light heavyweight scene, there's it's decent over here. You've got Louis Edmondson, you've got Dan Aziz, you've got Willie Hutchinson, you've got a lot of guys in and around that British level. It's perfect. It's ready made for a star like Ben. So we'll see. Look, we'll sit down now over the next couple of weeks and we'll see what's next. They'll be queuing up. He's the biggest payday in the division, and yeah, as I say, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for what's to come.
Okay, now this weekend, Tottenham Hotspur. It is Eubank Ben. Finally, we are getting it. Knock on wood, no issues. It seems like all systems are go. They both look great at the workouts. I have to say, one thing that I've really enjoyed in the build-up is the back and forth between you and Eddie Hearn. You are not shying away from it, my friend. I mean, I saw on Instagram just a couple hours ago, you're posting a very nice edit of him going back and forth as far as the bet is concerned. I saw yesterday when he was talking to Sky, he said, oh, this is just like the FA Cup. Sometimes the small club gets a chance to play with the big boys. Like, the jabs are back and forth between you two. What is the state of the relationship between you and Eddie? Because I feel like, okay, we get the kumbaya with him and Frank, but with you and him, there's none of that. And I like it. And I want it to remain that way, if I'm being 1,000% honest, because it's very entertaining.
Look, it's definitely healthy. It's competitive. There's no love lost, 100%. I don't think it's too malicious, but at the end of the day, we're the young promotional company coming through that maybe it was definitely frostier, but has just developed into something very competitive. But I agree. I think it's great that promoters can make fights, but you don't have to be best friends. And I think Frank and Eddie, sometimes it can be nauseating from where I'm sat. But I enjoy it. I have to say, Eddie is good fun. He's a big character in boxing. He talks a lot. He contradicts himself a lot. He says a lot of things which make it fun to go back and forth with. But look, the pressure's on Saturday. This is a huge star of his, Conor Benn, and one of our biggest clients, Chris Eubank Jr, going head to head. I don't know how the size of the fight is in the US, but this could be the biggest British fight in a long time. Definitely the biggest British fight of the year. It's the biggest story in British boxing of the last 30 years. So yeah, this is about the fighters, but of course to get a win over those guys. And we've got another fight on the undercard between Vidal Riley and Shep Clark, which is a huge fight in the cruiserweight division over here as well. It's good. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's fun. You know, 10 years ago, I was watching the shows of Frank Warren and Eddie. And so to be competing day to day now and to be going at it is great. And long may it continue. There's some massive fights to be made as well.
At the beginning of their relationship with Turki Al-Sheikh, it felt like Frank and Eddie were very happy to sort of box you out. Now you are very much in good standing and do business with them as well. Do you think that they would prefer you not be involved in these fights?
I think you know the answer to that question. They hate it. They absolutely hate it. They hate me being there. They hate me turning up. They hate our fighters on the shows. They hate our brand on the shows. They hate the relationship we have. But thankfully, Turki Al-Sheikh and boxing, you know, it's meritocratic in a sense now, and and they can't stop it. And I credit to Turkey, because he's not got involved in the politics. It was difficult at the start for us. Frank Warren was the main man. And it made it really tricky for us. I happily say that it was all sorts of fun and games that you can imagine, and it was tricky. But now our stable has grown. We had to wait. We had a young stable. They're maturing now. People want to see them in the big fights, on the big nights, in the big stadiums, and it's hard to ignore it. So look, of course, I'm under no illusions. If they had their way, we would not be there. But we're here. And our fighters are doing the business, and it's a great time, especially in British boxing. I know in the US it's had its detractors, and it's probably going through a little bit of a transition period. But in British boxing, you've got big fights every single week at the moment. It's hot property. For me, it's the second most popular sport to football now in the UK. So it's big business, and it's great to have three big promoters now, and three big stables, and the rivalry and the competitive edge. And if it's 2 against 1, then it has to be 2 against 1, no problem.
It's wonderful to see. It's wonderful to see how the sport is covered over there, and the fandom and the excitement surrounding it. Another aspect that I've loved in the build-up, I find Chris Eubank Jr. to be one of the most fascinating people in combat sports, and I love the fact that the public, we talk about the British public, they're finally backing him, because, I love pro wrestling as well. And when a guy goes from a heel, a bad guy, to a babyface, a good guy, it's a wonderful thing to see. And now it feels like, I look at all the comments on the videos, they say, I've never wanted someone to win more than Chris Eubank. I've never pulled for someone more than Chris Eubank. Not that long ago, they hated Chris Eubank. Have you noticed this turn, and why do you think this is?
Look, it definitely has something to do with Conor Benn, let's be honest. But I think Chris Eubank Jr. has, he's been a big name over here for a long time. People know him, people know his story, and they've seen him mature, and they've seen him develop, and they've seen him handle himself very, very well in very difficult circumstances. And he's such a character. He's so articulate, so intelligent. And he's almost like the fighter's fighter. He has those moments of outbursts. He says what he thinks. A lot of the fighters in the UK actually look up to him. Sometimes fighters don't want to say what they think, or are afraid to say what they think. Whilst Chris, will do what he wants. And look, I've found working with him so far, and it's been a while now, an absolute pleasure. He does what he says, and he says what he does, and he's he's a character. And yes, he's been hated, but right now, and this is what happens in Britain, they'll build you up and they'll tear you down. So we can't get too carried away. I think, of course, in this fight, given the history of it, given the previous failed tests and what happened before, and what Chris has had to go through, and the weight cuts, and people saw that. And as I say, the way Chris has handled himself the past couple of years in some big fights over here, he's definitely one of the most popular fighters in the UK right now. And for me, the biggest star outside the heavyweight division.
How do you feel about the rehydration clause?
I don't like it. It shouldn't be allowed. If it was, it would be in the rules if it was meant to happen. But ultimately, Chris was presented it as a very late sort of demand, but he was financially incentivized to take it. And we've looked at it and looked at his previous weights. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy, but it will be safe. I didn't like the way it was handled. I didn't like the way it was put in. I don't think we'll be ever agreeing to something like that again. I think if you agree to fight at a weight, you agree to fight at a weight. You don't try and limit a bigger guy's hydration. That's when you get into all sorts of problems and all sorts of safety problems, really. And I don't like to see it. It makes it even more interesting, given Conor's able to put on so much weight and not have to worry about weight, whilst obviously the weight is the main focus for us this week. But yeah, I have to say I don't like it. I don't agree with it, and I don't think it should happen again.
What was your reaction? We played the clip yesterday, and I said it was hard to watch as a human being, as a father, as a son, as a fight fan, as someone who admires Chris Sr. and Jr. When you saw Sr. last week call him a disgrace and say he would be nowhere near his corner, one thing for a trainer to say that, a manager to say that this is his father at the end of the day. What was your reaction when you saw that?
Look, I have to say, and I can agree with a lot of things Senior says, but I thought that was disgraceful. I think Chris should be extremely proud of his son and what he's achieved in his shadow, and then gone on to achieve, and the big nights that he's done, and the adversity that he's come through. Yeah, I really didn't like it. And sometimes I have to, the only way I can rationalize it is, he's been through extremely hard things in recent times, and he hasn't been well at times. And I think the media therefore need to be careful around a very delicate situation and perhaps a fragile state of mind. No father should say that about the son, but particularly when the son is a very honest, very dedicated, and a great role model. So yeah, I really didn't like it. One thing I know for sure is Chris is ice cold, and this close to a fight, it won't affect him. But will it affect him when he hangs his gloves up and moves on? Maybe it will. But personal things for me have to stay out of the cameras. Chris would love his dad to be there, but that's the difference. He wants a dad, doesn't want a trainer. He doesn't want an advisor. He'd like him there as his father. And I think that's what I found most uncomfortable about watching it. But believe me, it won't make a difference on the night.
What's your official prediction?
It's a Eubank Jr. stoppage. I've said round 5 or 6. It's going to be a firefight. You know what? These two guys, they don't box on the back foot. They're not technical fighters. They're their best when they're fighting. They're fighters. And I think they've got too much ego of anyone to box on the back foot. I think they're going to meet each other in the middle of the ring, and it's going to be an absolute shootout. That's why the fans are going crazy for it over here, because it's not just the names, it's not just the story, it's not just the animosity, but it's the actual styles of the fight. And it is going to be absolute mayhem from round 1. And people are talking about Conor Benn starting fast. Believe me, Eubank Jr. is going to start fast, and I think there'll only be one winner as it gets later in the fight.
Do you think if that result comes to fruition that we see a rematch, or do you think if it is that one-sided, then it's not warranted?
Listen, I'm not saying it's going to be one-sided. What I'm saying is I think Chris is proven under this amount of pressure at this level. I think that's going to be the difference. Conor's not been boxing in big pay-per-view nights, big stadiums, big arenas for very long. Chris has done it time and time again and had to come back, and I think that's what we'll see him through. It will definitely be a 2-fight deal. It's what both fighters have agreed to. It's what both fighters want. And I think the entertainment of Saturday night is going to demand one. But I just can't see how Chris Eubank Jr. doesn't win this fight. But many disagree with me. The bookies disagree with me. It's a very even fight with them, and yeah, it's a real monster.
I just wanted to ask you about a couple other things, and then we'll let you go. Appreciate the time. I know it's a busy time over there.
Yeah, no problem.
This TKO entry into the world of boxing and potentially having their own belt and not working with the sanctioning bodies and whatnot. What is your feeling on how this will all play out? Do you think they'll be successful, or do you think the sport is too ingrained in its way and it's not going to ultimately work?
I can speak from a UK perspective. Mm-hmm. I think the sport is extremely successful over here, and it's built on stars, and it's built on names, and it's built on big nights and fights being made at the right time, and fighters earning absolute fortunes as well. So I'd like to see it work. I think it definitely will have a place in the sport. It's going to take a very, very long time, which I think they're all prepared for it to really overthrow the establishment, just because boxing is pretty healthy at the moment, and boxing is doing major fights in the US. There's probably a big opportunity right now. When you don't have fights on mainstream networks and TV networks, ultimately that gives an opportunity to grow a new product, to have a new way of doing things. Do I think there's so much in boxing that could change, that could be better, that could be more entertaining for a young generation? Absolutely. And that's the opportunity that they'll see. And I honestly wish them all the best with it. I think it'll be fantastic. But, you know, boxing's been going for hundreds of years. I expect it to continue as well. And hopefully, I think maybe side by side, there's no reason, you know, you've got thousands of professional boxers all over the world that don't get the opportunities that they deserve. It isn't always meritocratic. It sometimes is about what training you're with. Do you know the promoter? Do you look right for the broadcaster? That's a major thing. And so something where you can climb a ladder from any part of the world in a meritocratic way, I think is very compelling and can be really successful. But you can't get away from the money that the top boxers earn. It is eye-watering in comparison to other combat sports. And when boxing does get it right, it sort of dwarfs everything else. So definitely in the UK, it's healthy. In the US, big opportunity. But I think they can exist side by side.
You have been a big proponent of women's boxing. You have had all female cards, and now it seems as though MVP, Nikisa Badarian and Jake Paul are going all in. They have a big all female card here in New York on July 11th, and it seems like they're really trying to scoop up a lot of the big names. How do you feel about them going all in on women's boxing, and is that a threat to your stable as well?
Look, you know what? When we've been doing women's boxing at the very top for years, and I think we've definitely, for me, have the best stable of fighters coming through. But we have been very much focused on the UK. But because we've been so successful, Clarissa Shields' biggest nights, Michaela Mayer's biggest nights, even Alicia Baumgartner has been on our shows. A lot of the American fighters, because there wasn't any opportunities over in the States for women's boxing, there wasn't any interest in it, they would have to come over. And that didn't always work. And I just boxing struggling so much in the US because we've had so much success with it in the UK. We've had some absolutely massive nights. We've built some amazing stars. We've got some unbelievable talent coming through in Lauren Price, Caroline Dubois, Carrie Sartingstall now coming through the ranks, all Olympians, Olympic medalists, gold medalists. But always looked to the US, and it was really tough. And so when Michaela would come over, when Clarissa would come over, they'd come over and they'd be shocked. They couldn't believe the attention. They couldn't believe the size of the crowds and the broadcast interest in women's boxing. So I credit it to them because I want women's boxing to do well in the US. It needs to be healthy in the US. It's sometimes difficult because you reach a ceiling with your fighters and there's not those big transatlantic fights, or that if they can only happen in London, like we saw with Shields Marshall. And so, look, if they can have success with it, if it can be consistent, if the US audience buy in, and I think that's the key. Like, you know, clearly the US market boxing isn't top of their priority right now. And so the key is how are you going to get women's boxing to have that interest? And that's the challenge that they've got. And with the power of Netflix and the power of the main event that they're putting on, I think they've definitely got a big shot. And it's just whether it can be maintained when it's not Taylor Serrano, etc., etc. So yeah, it's great to see. And hopefully women's boxing can be healthier in the US and it will make it healthier for us over here as well.
One last thing, and it's ending where we started. Can you clear up what happened with the rounds with Whittaker Cameron? Because I saw everyone getting some shots in on you in the build-up.
Oh, it was the longest week of my life.
What happened?
It was crazy.
What happened?
So what happened was we did the first fight with Liam Cameron and he was promoterless. And this was a Ben Whittaker Liam Cameron fight. And then the rematch came around and we went to make the rematch and we felt like we'd agreed a deal. And then obviously he signed with Queensbury, or Queensbury signed him, and I know his manager went to work with he's now working for Queensbury. So it all made sense fine. But at that moment, it was given their animosity towards us, it was going to become difficult. And so it's had all sorts of controversy, which ultimately made the fight bigger. It came down to the contracts. And on one of the forms that someone had done in the office, one of the forms that went over to them, the rounds was 12 rounds rather than 10 rounds, even though it contradicted everything else. And so it was noticed a couple of days after. We felt like it would be dealt with quite swiftly, but ultimately it was used to get one over on us, really. And it was much ado about nothing, but it created a big storm in the media. And we were saying it's 10 rounds, they were saying it's 12 rounds. We felt like we agreed, and then afterwards we agreed a number, and it became 10 rounds. And then they sort of reversed out of that, and it was a big story in the media. To be honest, it made the fight 2 or 3 times bigger. And it put more pressure on us, definitely put more pressure on Ben, and he was able to deal with that. But anyway, it ended up 10 rounds, and it ended up a beautiful night on Sunday night, an unbelievable night. And looking back, it was definitely part of a great story and a great night.
In the end, not needed. Much ado about nothing. So well done to.
Yeah, I said to Ben, you could have saved me a few quid there.
Yeah, exactly.
And but it was. But yeah, all is well, and he finished the job in 2 rounds. So fair play to him, and we move on.
Can't wait for this weekend. Great job in the build-up. Well done. The video was fun. The bet, that whole thing back and forth. That's a good edit.
He needs to bet. Tell Ariel.
Yeah.
He made that bet with me. Make sure if you speak to him that he sticks to it, because suddenly he's trying to reverse out of it. And I don't know why. He brought it up. He made the bet. I've been cut off.
No, keep going. So for the record, it's $1 million, right? It's $1 million on his guy?
Yeah. It's $1 million on his guy, $1 million on my guy, yeah. It's £1 million bet.
And
he made it.
He's been told he can't do it. Have you been told you can't do it?
No, I've been told I can do it.
Oh.
We can do it.
Okay.
And so he doesn't want to do it now, but he's a big boy with a lot of money, and so he should stick to it. He should stick to his word, and we should get it on.
Wow. All right. Let's see what his response is. I'm sure he'll have one. Thank you, Ben. Good luck to you and the team. Good luck to Chris. Looking forward to it very much. There he is.
Cheers, mate.
Ben Shalom of Boxer. Massive, massive night for him. Massive night for the sport of boxing on Saturday at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. New York Rick has been waiting like 70 years for this fight. It's his most anticipated fight ever. Thanks for watching this video. Before you go, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button for us. Also, give us a thumbs up, leave a nice comment. These things go a long way. And while you're here, do check out the rest of the channel. We've got live shows and full interviews, clips, and a whole lot more. We're doing big things here, and we appreciate your support very much.